Now we're going to look at how the Babylonians did their number system. So interesting thing, the Babylonians used powers of 60. And I have a feeling it ties back to time, because you do know that like there's 60 seconds in a minute, and then there's 60 minutes in an hour, and we do still use base 60 for time, which is why adding times is a little more challenging than normal numbers. But they used powers of 60 back then, and they used a positional system. They were the very first people, so the very first occurrence of the concept of place values in recorded history. So whereas the Egyptians just tallied everything up and then added it, right, drew all their pictures and then added it, the Babylonians decided to use place values instead. So this is what we call a positional system. It's just their place values aren't base 10 like what you're used to, theirs are base 60. So whereas we might have ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, they used 60 as their base. So they have ones, right? Every positional system has a 1 as the first place value. Its 0 power is always a 1. Then 60. So once you got to 60, you had a 2-digit number, but not until you got to 60. And then 60 squared is 3,600. So it's only once you get past 3,600, once you get past that amount, that you'll have a 3-digit number. And then it gets bigger and bigger. I don't have what the others are worth, but we're not going to deal with any huge ones. We're going to go up to about 3 digits in the Babylonians. So this is what each place value was worth. And then they had symbols that they used, because they didn't write symbols like we write. They used these symbols, and it was like this little triangular, almost like a stamper they could hit, and they could stamp it into the stone. It was an easy shape to stamp. So this little triangle is worth 1. And if you see this, like, it's kind of like a sideways, like they stamped that little triangle twice. It's kind of looks like a C shape, but it's 2 little triangles together. And that was worth 10. So if you saw this, you knew it was 10. If you saw that, it was worth 1. So let me show you how we read Babylonian numbers first, and then we'll talk about how you create them. But I think it's easier to learn how to read them first. So it says, what's the value of the following numbers? Well, the first thing we want to consider is how many digits are present, and there's 2 digits. This is your ones place, and this is your 60s place. And then you want to go and look at what is the amount that is being represented in each place value. So with the 3 little triangles here, that amount is 3. 1, 2, 3, because the little triangles are 1. And this amount is worth 10. So what they're saying is we have 3 of these and 10 of these. So we have 10 60s and 3 1s. Do you see what I'm doing here? I'm just multiplying. 10 times 60, we have 10 60s. 3 times 1. And you can use any kind of a little calculator. You're going to get 600 plus 3, which is 603. So the way that the Babylonians would represent the number 603, see, it takes us 3 place values to do it. It only took them 2. And this is what their number would look like. So if you saw that stamped on a wall somewhere, you would know that that amount was 603. So you're going to take the amount times the place value, and then you add them together. Let's try the next one. This would be your ones place and your 60s place. Again, let's see how much is represented in each place value. Over here we have 4. Here we have 10, 20, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. See, this is, you're not used to having more than 1 digit in your ones place, but in the Babylonian system you can. So this means 4, this means 35. So we're going to take 4 times 60 plus 35, times 1. I guess I don't need that one. And again, stick that into any calculator. That's 240 plus 35. You're going to get 275. So that's how the Babylonians would have represented the number 275. Again, it would just be these shapes, you know, like leave the lines and all the other numbers off of it. Okay, let's try another one. So this would be our ones place. then we would have our 60s place, and then the very next place value is actually 3,600. It jumps quite a bit. So we know that this number is at least 3,600 because we've got a 3-digit number. So the amount represented in each place value, this again, the little C shape, that's 10. This is worth 3. And this is 10, 20, 21, 22, 23. So 10, 3, and 23 is what those amounts are. So we have 10 3600s. We have 3 60s. And we have 23 ones. So see, it's just amount times place value, amount times place value, amount times place value, and you add them together. And this will be 36,000 plus 180 plus 23, which would give us a grand total of 36,203 when you add it all up. So pretty big number, and it only took them 3 digits to do it, but they had to stamp all these shapes in each digit. So you can see it became a little exhaustive at a certain point. But that's how you read the number. So it's just think how I did yellow times black, yellow times black, yellow times black. That's how we added those together. So let's go in reverse. How would the Babylonians represent the following amounts? Okay. Well, first of all, we got to look at it and decide, is this going to be a 1-digit, a 2-digit, or a 3-digit number? So again, remember, this is your ones place, 60s, and 3,600. So if your number is 3,600 or larger, you got to set aside 3 digits. If your number is from 60 up to 3,600, 3,699, it would just be a 2-digit number. So 3,702, that's bigger than 3,600, so we know we're going to have 3 digits. So the first thing you're going to say is, how many digits? That's the first thing, and we're going to need 3 digits. So I'm going to draw down at the bottom. I'm going to draw our 3 digits. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to fit our final drawing in here, but I'm going to go ahead and set up 3 digits. Okay. So then you want to start by going from the left, start by dividing. So we're going to say, how many 3,600s are in 3,702? And this one I think you could probably just divide it in your head. How many times does 3,600 fit into 3,702? Let's see, 3,702 divided by 3,600. Well, it's going to go in there once, and you can just subtract to figure out the remainder. The remainder would be 102, right, when you subtract those. So it goes in there once. So that means you have 1 3,600. So we're going to draw that right here. Here's our 1 in our 3,600s spot. I'm going to go right there. And now I have 102 left over, so my next line is going to be dealing with the 102. So I've got my 3,600 already accounted for. There's one of them. So then I'm going to say, okay, now I'm moving to 60s. How many 60s are in the remainder? I'm going to take our remainder here, 102. How many 60s are in 102? Well, I don't know. Let's see, 102 divided by 60. Let's see, I know 60 goes in there once. If you take 60 and double it, you get 120. So it doesn't go in there twice. It only goes in there once. And can we figure out the remainder? The remainder would be, if you just subtract, you get 42. So this one is how many 60s we have. So you're taking your quotient, basically. When you divide, whatever number you get, you draw it. And then you take your remainder and you divide by the next digit. And we get a 1, so you draw it. The remainder is 42, so the remainder is going to go in the last slot. So we got to do 40. So that's like 10. Remember, there's a different symbol for 10. 20. 30. 40, I guess I need to make my line a little longer, don't I? 42. So that's how you get the 3 digits. Comes from dividing, and then your final remainder goes here, so we have a 3-digit number. Just divide out 3,600, then divide out 60, and just draw as you go. That's the best way to do these. All right, now let's try this next one. Let me just kind of split my page here. 603. So first thing, how many digits? How many digits are we going to need for this one? You only need 3 digits if your number is 3,600 or bigger. Our number is 603, so we only need 2 digits. So again, I'm going to set up down here at the bottom, set up my 2 digits. That's where I'm going to draw my answer. Okay, so we know we're going to need 2 digits. So we're just going to start by dividing by 60. We don't need to divide by 3,600. We're going to start, how many 60s? In 603. So if I take 603 and I divide by 60, how many times will it go in there? Well, it'll go in there 10 times with a remainder of 3. So the 10, that's how many 60s. That's how many go in this first place value. So the way you draw 10 is just that little C-shaped guy. And then your remainder is 3. This one actually is much, much simpler than the last one. And that's how you use those. If you go to solvers online, they're going to give you different looking symbols, and it's going to be super obvious to me that you used a solver. Please don't use a solver online. Please use the symbols like they've been illustrated in the notes. That's what I'm going to be accepting for work that you guys turn in. Okay. So that's how you go into a Babylonian number or out of a Babylonian number. You need to make sure you know how to do both of those.